Welcome all to the certificate course offered by the Department of Political Science, and course name of our course is Human Rights. I think many of you are aware about the human rights and the human rights in day-to-day life. We are all hearing about the different human rights violations, infringement in the newspaper, medias, etc. And by offering such an certificate course, our major objective is to give an insight to the rights or the basic rights to be known by the students or the common man. Many of them are not aware about their rights. So by offering such a course, we are helping to give an idea about the basic rights to the students. And our course mainly, we are offered it in mainly 3 modules it have, and the first module, it's about the meaning of human rights and the evolution of human rights. And we know the human rights, these are the basic rights every human beings have by birth. There is no by nation, caste, no differences to the basic rights. And the evolution in this module 1 itself, we are discussing about the evolution of the human rights. As we all know, the human rights are there from the time of natural rights or natural law itself. The human rights are there, but it became popular into the common man, or in this modern world, the concept became very popular after the Second World War, after the establishment of the United Nations organization. A lot of developments happened in the field of human rights, as we all know about the UDHR, International Political and Economic Covenant. I like that lot of significant developments happened in this world after the establishment of United Nations organization. In the module 2, we are discussing about some of the international conventions regarding the human rights. As I said earlier, after the establishment of the United Nations, the United Nations gives more importance to the human rights protection. As part of it, they conducted some significant conventions regarding the human rights, and one of the important developments in the 20th century regarding the human rights is the UDHR. And the UDHR was passed by the United Nations General Assembly in the year 1948. It was one of the significant developments regarding the remarkable milestone in the human rights protection. And it was passed by the General Assembly by around the 55 countries were part of it, and in the year 1948 it was passed. And the second one, the important conventions regarding the human rights, is the International Convention on the Civil, Economic and Political Rights. It was passed by the United Nations General Assembly in the year 1966, and this was the first UDHR. It gives one of the declaration, or the giving an it's only a declaration, but it don't have any legal sanction, sanctity to the UDHR. But the International Covenant on the Civil and Economic Rights is a multilateral treaty between the different countries, or the countries in the United Nations organization. So it's give a legal sanctity to the human rights. And next one is about the International Convention on the Women, Children and Minorities. As we know, the women, children and minorities are some vulnerable communities, or the vulnerable class comparing with the in the society. So for the protection of the vulnerable communities, the women, children and minorities, for the protection of the human rights protection, the International United Nations organization in the year 1966 itself passed some conventions regarding the human rights protection of women, children and minorities. After the second module, in the third module we are discussing about the human rights in India. Some of the major important human rights protections in our constitution, in our some of the legal and civil rights regarding the human rights protection. And while coming to the third module, the constitutional provisions, as we all know, the major important milestone in the India's human rights protection is the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy. In the constitution, in the part 3 of the constitution, article 12 to 35 discussing about the fundamental rights. The fundamental rights are the basic rights given to the citizens of India. Not only the citizens, some of its rights are also given to the foreign nationals also. And the directive principles of state policy, these are the some directions given to the government of India or to the state regarding the human rights protections. And the Public Interest Litigation, Right to Information Act, Protection of Civil Rights Act, these are some of the act passed by the Parliament of India for the human rights protection. And the Right to Information Act, the recent act passed by the Parliament of India in the year 2005 for giving it's the constitution or the right of the citizens to know about what is happening in the government department, etc. For the Right to Information Act passed in the year 2005. And some of the in the 1993, the National and the State Human Rights Commission was established by the government of India in the year 1993 for the as a body for the protection of human rights. And these are the our syllabus. In the syllabus we are discussing about the these all things, introduction regarding the human rights, and the second and also about the evolution of human rights. And the second module, it's about the international developments regarding the protection in the international milestones in the development of human rights. And the third module, it's about the human rights protection in India, about the fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, some of the important acts passed by the Parliament of India for the protection of human rights. In the first module, our first topic is about the human rights, the meaning and definition of human rights. As I said before, the human rights are the rights given to the every human beings. There is no difference to the human beings regarding the race, caste, sex, religion, etc. By birth, every human beings have the basic rights. And the meaning of the human rights, the human beings are born equal in dignity and rights, and these are the moral claims which are inalienable and inherent in all individuals by virtue of their humanity alone, and irrespective of the caste, color, creed, place of birth, sex, and cultural difference or any other consideration. As the human rights meaning itself says about, by birth, by born, all human beings are born equal in dignity and rights, and these are moral claims which are inalienable and inherent. These are the basic rights. These are inalienable and inherent to all human beings. There is no difference in the individual. In the case of the basic human rights, there is no irrespective of the caste, color, creed, place of birth, sex, cultural difference, etc. There is no irrespective, or there is no differentiation in the human rights, the basic human rights. In the United Nations definition, the United Nations also says that the definition given by the United Nations organization in the human rights are, they are saying that the human rights are the rights inherent to all human beings regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, and any other status. That means there is no difference to the human beings in the basic rights. These are regardless of the race, sex, nationality, ethnicity and language, religion and any other status. That means there is no difference in the human rights. All human beings by birth have the basic rights. We can also say that they are natural rights. Human rights also we can say that these are the natural rights by birth human beings have, and there is no difference whether what's their caste, their sex, etc. And as we all heard in the news, some of the important human rights are right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery, torture, freedom of opinion and expression, right to work and education and many more. And these are some of the basic rights we are all hearing in the newspaper and all, and we will discuss it in the next module. Characteristics of human rights, characteristics and nature of human rights. As I said, we are here in the definition of human rights. The human rights, the first one is the human rights are inalienable. That means they are inherent in all individuals irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, sex and nationality. That means by birth, by inalienably, in the Malayalam it means അന്തർലീനമായിട്ട് ഓരോ മനുഷ്യനിലുമുള്ള ബേസിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള റൈറ്റാണ് ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അത് എടുത്തു മാറ്റപ്പെടാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. ആർക്കും ഓരോ മനുഷ്യനും അവൻ ജനിക്കുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ അവനുള്ള ബേസിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള റൈറ്റ്സ് ആണ് ഹ്യൂമൻ ഇൻഎലിയനബിൾ റൈറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് മീൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് സെക്കൻഡ് characteristics of human rights are the human rights are essential and necessary. ഈ ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് നമ്മുടെ ഡെവലപ്മെൻറ്റിന്, ഓരോ മനുഷ്യൻ്റെയും ഡെവലപ്മെൻറ്റിന് these basic rights are required for the development of human beings. That is said in the second characteristic, human rights are essential and necessary. In the absence of human rights, the moral, physical, social, economic and the spiritual welfare of an individual is impossible. For the economic, social, cultural development of a citizen or for a person, the basic right is this, basic human rights is required. Only by such basic rights the development of the human beings is possible. And the human rights are also essential as they provide suitable condition for the material and the moral upliftment of the people. ഒരു മനുഷ്യൻ്റെ അവൻ്റെ എക്കണോമിക്കലായിട്ടുള്ള, മോറലായിട്ടുള്ള, സ്പിരിച്വൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള, മെറ്റീരിയൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള അവൻ്റെ പുരോഗതിക്ക് ദീസ് ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് ആവശ്യമായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതാണ് the second characteristic says about that. And the third one, it says that the human rights are universal. That means there is no difference whether they belong to which nation or which country they belong to. Even as an Indian, we have such rights. The citizens of the Pakistan or the citizens of USA, all have the basic rights. അത് സാർവത്രികമാണ്. ഏത് രാജ്യത്താണ് അവൻ ബിലോങ് ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് അവിടെ ഒരു മാനദണ്ഡമല്ല. എല്ലാ മനുഷ്യനും ലോകത്തിലുള്ള എവരി ഹ്യൂമൻ ബീങ്സ് ഹാവ് ദീസ് റൈറ്റ്സ്. ദർ ഈസ് നോ ഡിഫറൻസ് വിച്ച് കൺട്രി ഓർ വിച്ച് പ്ലേസ് ദേ ബിലോങ് ടു. ദ ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് ആർ യൂണിവേഴ്സൽ. ആൻഡ് ദ തേർഡ് വൺ, it is protected and enforced by the authority of the state. And it's the right of the human rights are the authority who protects and enforce the human rights are the state. The state is the authority, and as we know, the states, the major important function of the state is to maintain the law and order of the citizen. So the basic if any infringement or the violation of the human rights is happened, it is the duty of the state to protect and enforce the human rights. And the next two characteristics, it's about it says that it is irrevocable. That means they cannot taken by any power or authority, because these rights are originate with the social nature of man in the society of human beings, and they belong to the person simply because he is a human being. Irrevocable means അത് എടുത്തു മാറ്റപ്പെടാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ലാത്ത റൈറ്റാണ് ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് ദാറ്റ് മീൻസ് ദേ കനോട്ട് ടേക്കൺ ബൈ എനി പവർ ഓർ അതോറിറ്റി. ഒരു സ്റ്റേറ്റിനോ അതോറിറ്റിക്കോ ആർക്കും അത് എടുത്തു മാറ്റപ്പെടാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. ഈ ബേസിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് എടുത്തു മാറ്റപ്പെടാൻ ഒരു സ്റ്റേറ്റിനോ അതോറിറ്റിക്കോ ഒന്നും കഴിയത്തില്ല. But in the some there is during if any emergencies are proclaimed during that time, the state have the right to taken away the some emergency situations and all. State have the rights. In the Indian constitution we are saying about the mainly saying about three emergency situations in the article 352, 356 and 360 about the state emergency, national emergency, state emergency and the financial emergency. During such any emergency situation, state have the right to infringe the human rights, but otherwise the state have no authority, or the state or any other authority don't have the right to taken away such basic rights. That means it is irrevocable. And next one, the human rights, next characteristics saying that the human rights are dynamic. That means the human rights are not static, they are dynamic, and human rights go on expanding with the social, cultural, political development in the state. By the as we all know that the dynamic means അത് പുതിയ ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു പുതിയ കാലഘട്ടത്തിനനുസരിച്ച് അതിൽ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ, പുതിയ റൈറ്റുകൾ ഉത്ഭവിക്കുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. ദാറ്റ് മീൻസ് ദ ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് ആർ ഡൈനാമിക്, they are not static and they are dynamic, and the human rights go on expanding with the socio-cultural political development within the state. By the new inventions in the socio-cultural political developments in the new conventions, the human rights are, the new human rights are added. That is meaning of the dynamic. So these are the major important characteristics of the human rights. Once again we can just check. In the first we said about the human rights are inalienable. That means by birth it is inherent and inalienable to the every citizens, irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, sex, etc. And second, it's characteristics of human rights. It's about the human rights are essential and necessary for the development of the human rights, human beings. Such the human rights is required. That means that we said the human rights are essential and necessary. And third one says that the human rights are universal. That means irrespective of the nation or the boundary, there is no difference. Every human being, that means all the there is no difference in the human rights to the any particular person or the particular people belong to any particular country. It is universal. Human rights are universal. And third one, next characteristic saying is that it is protected and enforced by the authority of state. The protective authority behind the protection of human rights is the state, is the protective authority or the enforcement. The state is the enforcer authority. And next one it is saying that it is irrevocable. That means they cannot taken by any power or authority, because these rights originate with the social nature of man in the society of human being. That means the state or any other authority have the right to taken the basic human rights. That only, as I said before, only during the time of an emergency situation state have the rights in taking the human rights. And next one, human rights are dynamic. The last one says that human rights are dynamic. That means by the expanding in the socio-cultural political development, in the major political, social, cultural development by the on such a way, the human rights are also dynamic. The new rights are evolved in the human rights also. These are the major characteristics and meaning of the human rights. Thank you.